Verdun, France, December 1944. Inside a guarded Allied command room, the maps looked almost hopeless. Bastogne was surrounded. The German army had wrapped itself around the Belgian crossroads town like a steel fist. Inside that frozen perimeter, American soldiers were short on ammunition, short on medical supplies, short on winter clothing, and almost completely cut off from the outside world. The Germans believed the answer was obvious. Bastogne would surrender. It was only a matter of time. But that was the problem. Time was exactly what the Americans did not have. General Dwight Eisenhower needed someone to strike the southern flank of the German Bulge and move north toward Bastogne before the town broke. The question was simple. Who could turn an army in the middle of a winter crisis? The answer seemed impossible. A full army had roads, fuel, artillery, trucks, bridges, traffic jams, wounded men, supply columns, and thousands of vehicles already facing the wrong direction. Some officers believed it would take a week. Then George S. Patton spoke. He did not ask for a week. He did not ask for perfect weather. He did not ask for more time. He said he could attack with 3 divisions in 48 hours. The room went silent. To some men, it sounded insane. To others, it sounded like Patton's ego. But in the next 48 hours, Patton would show what a moving army could do when time itself became the battlefield. The Germans thought Bastogne was waiting to surrender. Patton knew it was waiting for him. Bastogne was not a large city. That was what made the German obsession with it seem strange at first. It was a small Belgian crossroads town, buried under snow, stone buildings, frozen roads, and the gray silence of a winter battlefield. But on the map, Bastogne mattered more than its size. Roads ran through it like veins. 7 major routes connected there, and the German armored columns needed those roads if they wanted to keep pushing west through the Ardennes. If Bastogne held, German movement slowed. If Bastogne fell, the road network opened. That was why the town became a prize. And that was why the men inside it began to feel as if the whole German army was pressing against their chests. The 101st Airborne and the attached American units dug in wherever they could, in woods, behind stone walls, inside shattered houses, along roads that disappeared into fog and snow. They had been rushed into the fight too quickly for comfort. Many had no proper winter gear. Some wrapped sacks around their boots. Others shoved paper into their jackets for warmth. The cold did not simply hurt. It entered the bones. Sergeant Frank Miller, a rifleman holding a position near the edge of the perimeter, had counted his remaining ammunition twice before dawn. Then a third time. Not because the number changed, because he hoped it had. Nearby, a wounded paratrooper lay on a church floor with a blanket pulled up to his chin. There was not enough morphine, not enough doctors, not enough heat, not enough of anything except snow, artillery, and waiting. The Germans understood that. They did not have to take Bastogne in one clean blow. They could squeeze it. They could shell it. They could wait for ammunition to run low, for medical supplies to disappear, for exhausted men to start asking whether survival mattered more than pride. That was the trap. Not just tanks around a town, but time around men. Every hour made the German circle feel tighter. Every frozen morning asked the same question. How much longer could Bastogne hold before the cold, the shells, and the shortage did what German infantry had not yet done? And somewhere far to the south, Patton's promise had already begun racing against that clock. On December 22, 1944, a white flag appeared in the snow outside Bastogne. For a brief moment, some American soldiers might have wanted to believe it meant relief of a different kind. Maybe the Germans were asking for a pause. Maybe they wanted to collect wounded. Maybe, in some strange turn of fortune, the enemy had come to surrender. But the white flag did not mean that. It meant the opposite. 4 German officers came forward under truce, escorted through the American lines by freezing infantrymen who kept their weapons ready and their eyes hard. The Germans carried themselves with the stiff confidence of men who believed the outcome had already been decided. They were not there to negotiate. They were not there to ask. They were there to deliver a demand. The letter came from General Heinrich von Leutwitz, whose forces were tightening around Bastogne. To him, the situation was not emotional. It was mathematical. The Americans were surrounded. Their supplies were failing. Their medical system was breaking. Their air support was trapped above the clouds. Their roads were blocked. And German artillery was waiting. In that cold German logic, surrender was not cowardice. It was the only rational conclusion. The ultimatum gave the Americans a choice that was not really a choice. Lay down their arms or face destruction. The message was formal, controlled, almost polite in the way a knife can be polished before it is used. Von Leutwitz believed he was offering the Americans a final chance to save themselves. He believed a commander looking at the same map would see the same truth. No food. No ammunition to waste. No rescue close enough to matter. No reason to keep bleeding in a frozen town. But that was where the Germans made their first mistake. They believed Bastogne was only a position on a map. They believed men who were cold enough, hungry enough, and surrounded enough would eventually become reasonable. They did not understand the kind of men holding those foxholes. They did not understand the 101st Airborne, and they had no idea that while their letter moved toward the American command post, George Patton was already turning the question of rescue into a race against time. The German ultimatum was carried into the American command post under Bastogne. It was not a grand room. It was cold, dim, crowded with maps, tired officers, field telephones, cigarette smoke, and the kind of silence that only comes when every man knows the next decision may cost thousands of lives. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe had barely slept. He had inherited command of the surrounded force in a moment when Bastogne was running out of nearly everything except danger. When the German demand was placed in front of him, he read it. The language was formal. The meaning was simple. Surrender, or be destroyed. McAuliffe did not rise from his chair. He did not make a speech. He did not gather his staff for a dramatic declaration. He looked at the paper, saw the arrogance inside it, and reacted like a man too tired to pretend the demand deserved dignity. Nuts. That was all. At first it was not a strategy. It was frustration. A blunt American dismissal from a commander who had no patience left for German theater. Then one of his officers reminded him that the German delegation was still outside, waiting in the cold for a written reply. So the question became almost absurd. What should the official answer be? Someone in the room realized the truth before the others. No polished military refusal could say it better. No formal sentence could carry the same contempt. The reply was typed, short, centered, almost ridiculous in its simplicity. To the German commander, nuts. From the American commander, when the German officers received it, they did not understand. They asked what the word meant. They wanted translation, clarification, military meaning. But the meaning was not complicated. It meant the Americans were not surrendering. It meant Bastogne would not bow because a German general had written a polite threat on official paper. And when the word moved through the frozen perimeter, it did something ammunition could not do. It made exhausted men smile. Sergeant Frank Miller heard it from another soldier near the line. He repeated it once, quietly. Then he checked his rifle again. Nuts did not bring food. It did not bring morphine. It did not bring artillery shells. But it told every man in Bastogne one thing. They were still holding. Now Patton had to reach them before defiance became a death sentence. While Bastogne held on inside the German ring, the Allied High Command faced the question no one wanted to answer. Who could reach them in time? The meeting at Verdun was not built for drama. It was built for decisions. Maps covered the walls. Staff officers moved quietly. The weather reports were bad. The front lines on the map looked ugly, bent inward by the German attack, like a fist had punched into the Allied army. Eisenhower needed a counterblow. Not someday. Not when the roads cleared. Not when the weather became kind. He needed an army to turn north and strike the southern shoulder of the German Bulge before Bastogne was strangled. The problem was scale. Patton's Third Army was not a cavalry patrol that could simply change direction on command. It was a massive moving machine. Infantry, armor, artillery, engineers, ambulances, fuel trucks, maintenance crews, supply columns. Thousands of vehicles already pointed toward another fight. To turn that army north meant changing roads, routes, bridges, traffic flow, ammunition supply, fuel priority, medical evacuation, command lines, and the movement of entire divisions in the middle of winter. Some men in that room understood logistics too well to believe in miracles. A week sounded ambitious. Several days sounded dangerous. 48 hours sounded absurd. Then Eisenhower turned to Patton. Patton did not hesitate. He said he could attack with 3 divisions in 48 hours. The room went still. Not respectful stillness. Disbelieving stillness. To some, it sounded like ego. To others, madness. One more impossible claim from a general who had built his legend on speed. But Patton's face did not carry the look of a man gambling. He looked like a man who had been waiting for someone to ask the right question. Because Patton had not walked into Verdun empty-handed. Before the crisis fully reached that room, he had already pushed his staff to prepare contingency plans for turning Third Army north. Different routes, different divisions, different levels of risk. He had considered the impossible before anyone officially demanded it. That was why the promise sounded insane to the room, but not to him. Patton was not inventing a miracle. He was opening a plan, and from that moment on, the battle for Bastogne became something larger than courage. It became a race between German pressure and American motion. The moment Patton's order moved through Third Army, the war changed shape. It was no longer only a fight against German guns. It was a fight against distance, against roads, against ice, against fuel gauges dropping toward empty, against thousands of vehicles that had to turn north without tearing the entire army apart. Tanks had to move. Infantry had to move. Artillery had to move. Ambulances, ammunition trucks, fuel tankers, engineers, bridge equipment, repair crews, radio teams, and military police all had to move in the right order, on the right roads, at the right time. One mistake could jam a road for hours. One stalled truck could trap a column behind it. One frozen bridge could delay an entire division. That was the part the enemy could not see on the map. The Germans saw Bastogne surrounded. They saw American units stretched thin. They saw snow, fog, and frozen roads. They believed those things were working for them. But Patton was trying to turn the same nightmare into motion. All across the Third Army's front, engines coughed awake in the cold. Drivers climbed into trucks with numb hands. Tank crews scraped ice from hatches. Military policemen took their posts at frozen intersections, waving convoys through snow and darkness until their faces burned from the wind. Some men drove with their windows open because the glass had frozen over. Some followed only the dim red light of the vehicle ahead. When trucks slid off the road, recovery crews dragged them back. When fuel ran low, tankers were pushed forward. When men fell asleep standing up, someone shook them awake and pointed them north. There was no romance in it, no clean, heroic image, just tired men, frozen roads, roaring engines, and a general who understood that speed was not magic. Speed was organization under pressure. And every mile north became a small defeat for the German plan, because the Germans had counted on Bastogne being isolated long enough to break. They had counted on winter slowing any rescue. They had counted on the Americans needing time they did not have. But Patton was spending time like ammunition. Hour by hour, road by road, convoy by convoy. The real battle had begun before his tanks ever reached the German line. Then the sky changed. For days the clouds had protected the German army like a roof of gray stone. Fog and snow had grounded Allied aircraft. The men in Bastogne could hear German shells, German engines, German voices in the dark. But they could not hear American planes. Then the weather began to clear. The snow still covered the fields. The roads were still dangerous. The cold still cut through gloves and coats like a blade. But above the Ardennes, the sky opened enough for the Allies to return. And when the aircraft came, the Germans understood that the battle had entered a new phase. Their columns were no longer hidden by weather. Their armor was no longer moving under a silent sky. Their siege lines were no longer tightening without consequence. From the south, Patton's spearhead kept pushing. The 4th Armored Division drove toward Bastogne through roads that had become corridors of wreckage, fire, and frozen mud. German roadblocks had to be blasted apart. Anti-tank guns had to be found before they found the Shermans. Infantry moved with the armor, clearing villages, tree lines, and road bends where one hidden gun could stop the whole advance. This was not a clean rescue. It was a fight for every mile. Inside Bastogne, Sergeant Frank Miller heard rumors before he heard engines. Third Army is coming. Patton is moving north. Armor broke through somewhere south. Rumors were dangerous in a siege. They could lift men up, then crush them harder when nothing came. So Miller did not believe the first one, or the second. But later, through the shell fire, he heard something different. A low mechanical growl, far away, then closer, not German, American. Men along the perimeter started turning their heads toward the sound. No one cheered yet. They were too tired for that. They only listened. Because after days of being surrounded, even the distant sound of an American tank could feel impossible. The Germans had expected Bastogne to become a grave. Instead, the southern edge of their trap began to crack. Patton had not merely sent help, he had sent motion. And now the army that had demanded surrender was being forced to turn and face the rescue it had failed to imagine. Bastogne did not survive because the situation was easy. It survived because men inside the perimeter refused to behave like defeated men. They were cold, they were hungry, they were short on ammunition. Their wounded lay in frozen buildings with too little medicine and too much pain. But when the Germans demanded surrender, Bastogne answered with one word: nuts. That word did not break the siege. It did not clear the roads. It did not move tanks through snow. But it kept the spirit of the town from collapsing before help could arrive. And that was where Patton entered the story. Not as a magician, not as a man who bent history by shouting at it, but as a commander who understood that war often belongs to the man who prepares before the crisis is fully named. The Germans looked at Bastogne and saw a surrounded town. They saw a noose tightening. They saw American soldiers trapped inside a frozen pocket with no logical path out. And on the map, they were not entirely wrong. That was what made their mistake so fatal. They calculated the town. They calculated the roads. They calculated the weather. They calculated the shortage of supplies. But they miscalculated Patton. They did not understand that speed itself could become a weapon. They did not understand that a general who had already imagined the impossible could move faster than an enemy who believed the impossible would never be attempted. Patton's 48-hour promise was not the full rescue of Bastogne. It was the beginning of the counterstroke. The moment an army facing one direction began turning toward a crisis faster than German commanders thought an army could move. That is why the promise mattered. Not because it sounded heroic, but because it shattered the enemy's timetable. The Germans expected Bastogne to wait for surrender. Instead, Bastogne waited for Patton, and when Third Army came north, the trap began to change owners. The besiegers became the ones forced to react. The men who demanded a white flag now had to face American armor coming through the snow. So if you had been in that room at Verdun, hearing Patton say 48 hours, would you have believed him? Or would you have thought he was insane? Because the impossible was not something Patton invented in that room. It was something he had already begun preparing before anyone else dared to ask.